It's clear that this year for the Bearcats football team has been a step forward, but just how much of a step forward is where nobody can seem to agree on.
You are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bearcats. Locked On Bearcats is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Bearcats, every single day. And we want to thank you for helping us make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the country. My name is Jeff Carr, and I'm all Cincinnati all the time. Worked in multiple athletic departments on an SID basis, and I've been a season ticket holder for Bearcats football for 7 seasons now. And I'm glad that you're alongside me here today. Today, Russ Heltman joins me a little bit earlier on in the week because Thanksgiving kind of messes up the week schedule, but in the best of ways because we love turkey. We're going to talk about later on our predictions for what's going to happen UC TCU. That's in a little bit later on here in the show. In just a few minutes, I want to talk about the key matchups that the Bearcats need to take advantage of to finish the regular season off with a win. But I want to begin with this question of just how much of a step forward is this season. All on today's episode that is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. Joining me, as he usually does a little bit later on in the week, but he will here today on Wednesday, is Russ Heltman, one of the most trusted voices in all of Clifton. Russ, what you got for me, man?
It's a loaded week of Cincinnati sports ready to tackle it. We got the Bengals on Thanksgiving, Bearcats basketball, 2 games in the middle of the work week, and Cincinnati football wrapping up the regular season slate. A lot of fun stuff to get to.
Yeah, hopefully we see a much better week than last weekend. I heard somebody say that the Cincinnati parlay, the anti-Cincinnati parlay this last weekend, if you hit on it, the odds were only plus 550. Like, what are we doing here? I feel like we're getting disrespected. And yet they did lose all of those games.
Yeah, pretty much losing the entire time and pretty handily at that. So not really much disrespect.
It's great to be a Cincinnati sports fan. But I know this. Rest this season.
I gave up, Jeff. I didn't even watch that FC game. Read my book. I was like, I'm not giving my time to this city anymore. I've done enough.
Need a little bit of cleanser, right? Like had to get right in the mind. Yeah, I find it difficult to imagine that we are where we are and it's not a step forward for the football team. But at the same time, it felt like that 7-game win streak sort of changed the expectations a little bit, changed our thoughts on what the season could be. And now after suffering a 3-game losing streak and, whatever happens here at TCU, do you agree that this season has been a step forward?
So far, yes. But the next 2 games are going to kind of really heavily weigh into it being only a step forward in the record, just like last year felt kind of the same way, only a step forward in the record with the way they lost 5 consecutive games. And if you lose 5 consecutive games here as well, it's once again, Jeff, only going to feel like a step forward on that number. So they did go over the betting win total over on FanDuel Sportsbook, was sitting at 6.5 throughout all of the offseason. So you've already accomplished that, and you did that before November. But, I mean, man, this team's 1-10 under Scott Satterfield in this month. Like, they have to find a way to get a win when you most need it, and you got to find a way to beat a real team at some point, which TCU is, a top 35 opponent. They're not going to have the opportunity most likely unless they get a win this weekend and get a solid bowl matchup in the next month to beat a team in the top 25 of efficiency. Iowa State, yes, all well and good. It was a top 15 win in the AP poll, but I'm not going based off that for how I really judge teams. I go based off the analytic metrics, and that team was outside the top 30 when they entered at Nippert Stadium, and they're going to finish well outside the top 30 down the stretch of this season. So you're still looking for that moment where they've proved it against a real team, had that opportunity last week, squandered it away throughout the game against BYU, had multiple chances to win, and just were not able to get it done on the defensive side of the ball and on the special team side of the ball. All 3 phases have to row together to be able to accomplish that, given what I brought up on this show and multiple times over the last few weeks, that they're the second least talented power conference team on 24/7 Sports' composite ratings. You have to row together as a unit to be able to overcome that. and they haven't been able to do that so far. So yes, has been a step forward, but if they don't get any wins the rest of the season, it's only going to feel like a step forward in the win column.
So then the other question that accompanies that, a lot of folks were talking about this Saturday night as we left Nippert after the loss to BYU, is the seat warming back up again? Like, it felt like Scott Satterfield got off of any sort of hot seat, but at the same time, did he hit that seat warmer button and maybe it's on like a level 1 right now?
No, there's not enough money to fire Scott Satterfield and potentially have to fire Wes Miller if he does not meet expectations this offseason, and maybe have to clean house in the athletic department, given I don't know if the president and the leadership in this university is going to allow John Cunningham to make another pair of hires at the football and basketball position, considering there has been no postseason success for those programs since he took over.
That is a key element that I know
since he made those hires.
Yeah. That's a key element that I know I didn't necessarily get into that. One of my first episodes that I did here was that I talked about why Scott Satterfield is on the hot seat. And of course he got himself off of that with the step forward that the season
he will be the coach next year. I think we can,
he will.
I would be 1,000% shocked if he is not the head coach next year, unless it's like him moving up in jobs and getting hired away.
Because I also didn't consider the bit that it's like, if you get rid of the head coach now, it kind of feels like you're also condemning the athletic director as well. So there's a lot more layers to this than just, boy, I don't like Scott Satterfield, which it felt like there were a lot of folks in the stands that were saying similar things to that, outside of the other things that they were saying, which we won't really get into on today's podcast. But when it comes to this season as a whole, like, I feel like that 7-game winning streak was super transformative. And if you can win this game against TCU and then, get yourself a nice opponent for the bowl and win that game too, I think that you will almost completely erase the worries that people had through the 3-game losing streak.
I'd agree. You got to find, really, it's come down to this weekend, Jeff, honestly, because if you lose this game at 7-5, you're going to be what? 6th, 7th place in the Big 12, likely facing a 6th, 7th placed ACC team or one of the teams in the middle of the Big 10 or the SEC, not really having a big chance to prove anything there, especially if it's an ACC school or a Group of 5 school, which is kind of what you get matched up with if you're a 7-win power conference team. Kind of need to get that road victory in November here in a true road environment to then set yourself up to really put the cherry on top of the season against a true, probably ranked opponent, potentially in a more marquee bowl than you would be getting if you only win 7 games.
And that's the other thing too. Like, if you lose this game, but you win the bowl, then everybody's going to be like, well, yeah, but you beat a nobody. Like,
right. Maybe they get a decent matchup. It's still possible, but likely that they will not get a really, really top tier team that they're going to face off against. And
that leads into an offseason worth of questions where you've got to replace so many seniors. And then, what does Brendan Sorsby do? I know we kind of talked about this past week where it was like, is he for sure coming back? Well, it's not just the draft thing. Does he look at transferring somewhere else? So many different questions surrounding that. So finishing strong on this season really feels like it's more than just the record that needs these 2 wins. So thinking of that, looking at what's happening this Saturday down in Fort Worth, there are a couple of key matchups to take advantage of. We talked about Joe Royer earlier on in the week, but of course we'll get into a few more to keep your eye on as the Bearcats get ready for the Horned Frogs. Plenty of game action to get in on over at FanDuel, and I'm looking at the Cincinnati Bearcats as they're headed on the road this weekend, going to be closing out the season against TCU. The line has actually moved. The Bearcats opened as 4.5-point underdogs. They're now 3.5-point underdogs. That's an interesting one to bet on as a cover. I'm not necessarily sure that I love it, but that might be something that you love on over at FanDuel. And if you're a new user and you place $5 on that and you get a win, you get $300 in bonus bets. Those kind of odds you can't find anywhere else. And plus you can check out all the stuff, whether it's NCAA football, NCAA basketball, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, it's all on FanDuel. And you can take advantage of so many different lines, whether it's the spread, the money line, the over under, prop bets galore. FanDuel's got you covered all season long. Make sure you download FanDuel today. Thank you for making Locked On Bearcats part of your everyday routine and your first listen. And thank you for helping to make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the country. Had a little bit of a volume issue there at the beginning of that ad. Sorry. It was a lot louder than other stuff, but we soldier on. All right, Russ, I've been a little bit jaded here these last couple of weeks. I'm not going to lie. The 3-game losing streak has drained me a bit. And so looking at this week's matchup, I just got a lot of worry about what the Bearcats are going to put together down in Fort Worth. What will be the deciding thing, the matchup or the key player for you that it's like this happens, Bearcats win?
Turning over Josh Hoover. Can you find a way to get some interceptions on the board here, fellas? My Lord, what do they got? 2 all season, 1 for a pick 6. It's just been insanely difficult. Really, the whole Satterfield era to turn the other team over. They have 9 total turnovers gained on the season for Cincinnati, 2 turnovers via interception, 7 recovered fumbles. And you're going up against the second most prolific interception man in the nation. Josh Hoover's turned the ball over 13 times through the air. That's second most in the entire country, behind, I believe, only one other player has that mark that high. Caden Beltkamp of FAU has 15 interceptions, only one with more than Josh Hoover's 13. Same with DJ Lagway at 13. You got to find a way to, when that ball is in harm's way, collapse to it, get on those tipped passes, there was 3 tipped passes in the middle of the secondary in the BYU game, and a Bear Bachmeier performance that was pretty much just flat out bad passing the ball. And they didn't take advantage of it. You got to get to that football. You got to win the turnover battle here. They lost it again against BYU. You've seen Brendan Sorsby start to kind of hang a little looser with his turnover-worthy play rate over the past few weeks. 4 turnover-worthy plays, according to PFF, still top 8 nationally in that metric, but putting the ball in harm's way a little bit more often than you'd like to see. And then on the flip side, offensively, can you find a way to run the football and control the clock a little bit? Because I was all for the quick scoring early on in the season and the way that was winning them games, but we're in mid-November now, late November now, Jeff. Your defense is cooked. It's absolutely cooked. They are so tired. They've played more snaps than any defense in the nation. They've been on the field for 4 minutes longer on average than any defense in the nation, which is astounding. I mean, the difference between UC at the bottom of the nation and overall time of possession, which is where they sit, 4 minutes lower than any other team, is like the difference between the second to last team and being just outside the top 100. I mean, it's like a 30-spot difference when you get to that kind of 4-minute threshold. So I'm not for this quick scoring anymore. Find a way to sustain drives, get into the end zone that way, be able to run the football with Sorsby, Tawee Walker, and Evan Pryor, who told me after practice Tuesday that he was only about 85-90% during Saturday's game, so he should be even more explosive in this one. Got to find a way to run the football, and it's not necessarily going to be very easy against the TCU defense that's 13th in EPA per rush and 35th in rushing success rate. Much worse against the pass. I think if you run the football, it's only going to unlock that play action game even more, and they're going to be able to throw deep on this TCU team when they give them that opportunity. TCU on the season is allowing a whopping 9.32 yards average depth of target. So Brendan Sorsby is going to be able to target Jeff Caldwell here, and be able to target Caleb Goody here down the field. But if they can't run the football, then they're going to be able to give more resources to the back end of that defense and make it a lot more difficult. So got to be able to run the ball here after not being able to do that against BYU, a BYU team that basically pushed them around on both sides of the line of scrimmage.
I was going to say, that's the one thing that really kind of surprised me, is that it's felt like through the 7-game winning streak, a lot of different things happened. Like they played really mistake-free football, and they did a great job of that, but their offensive line was dominant, and their offensive line has kind of been pushed back these last 3 weeks. They haven't really been able to create those sustained drives because there's those plays where, even against BYU, Evan Pryor had, like a 23-yard carry, but then the rest of them were like 2 and 3 and 1 yards, and they just weren't going anywhere because you did not see that consistent push up front that they had during that winning streak. And I kind of feel like that's been the biggest reason why the offense has faltered more times than not in this losing streak.
Right. And they're going to have an opportunity here to move the football up and down the field. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at this TCU defense, 105th nationally in quality drive rate on CFBgraphs.com. They are giving up just a lot of consistent mowings down the field, but they aren't giving up a lot of points in the red zone. So Cincinnati going to have to be as strong as they were early in the season in Fort Worth here, just 43rd in points per quality drive rate. They're kind of similar to BYU in that sense. And we saw that play out kind of in a huge swing moment of the game when they were not able to get that 4th and 2 inside the 5-yard line against BYU. And that subsequently cost them 7 points on the board in a 26-14 game, and obviously had 3 field goals that missed subsequently in the rest of that contest. But yeah, you got to be able to win the line of scrimmage. It's somewhat here. It's a little bit. And then I'm looking for Brendan Sorsby to take advantage of some of these rush lanes a little bit more often. I know he's a little bit banged up. I know that ankle hurts a little bit, but you're going to have 3 or 4 weeks to get it healthy across the bowl practice timeline here. And this is the Big 12 championship game for Cincinnati in terms of how well their season is going to end up looking when we get to January and reflect on everything. So Brendan Sorsby was their leading rusher last week with 8 carries for 38 yards. There were 4 windows that I pointed out, and especially on that missed field goal, the third missed field goal, one that occurred in the second half. He did not run the ball on 2nd and 10 when there was a clear coverage lanes, leaving it open for him on the left side of the line of scrimmage, threw the ball away, and they end up missing a field goal on that drive when he could have picked up the first down with his legs easily on that. You cannot let those opportunities pass him by, and they're going to be there for him, given TCU is 90th nationally in scramble EPA and 69th nationally in scramble rate allowed. He's going to have chances to run the football in a non-designed way, and he's got to take advantage of those. 12 to 15 carries here will be very beneficial for the Bearcats from Brendan Sorsby. Running the football 45 to 50 times should be the goal on the road to control the pace, control this this TCU offense on the other side that's very good passing the ball, and not give them many opportunities to do that. So I'm looking for Brendan Sorsby to make a little bit more magic happen with his legs here, especially with kind of all of the rushing weapons at their disposal.
I'd be very excited to see the kind of game that he's going to put together. What do you make of the Joe Royer of it all, though? Because it just feels like he's been non-existent these last 3 weeks and really kind of seems to be the key to the offense not moving forward.
I'm not worried about Joe Royer at all. I'm not. I think it's the least of the Bearcats' problem. People were freaking out about that last Saturday. There were way bigger issues for the Bearcats. The biggest issue to me is the defense. The defense has to find a way to find a settling in this 3-3-5 scheme. I mean, Jeff, they're 105th nationally in stop rate. That's just what it comes down to. 105th nationally in stop rate against opposing FBS teams. They're only getting a stop on about 57% of their drives this season. So that's got to turn around. Obviously not too much time to turn that around over the next 2 games, but moving forward in the next year, that's the biggest thing for me that's going to cap or raise the ceiling of this program is how well this 3-3-5 defense can continue gelling under Tyson Bite. And a lot of people kind of question the scheme, but that's what wins the Big 12 championship most often is the 3-3-5 scheme. It's just about the players executing within it and being able to make plays within it, which harkens back to the turnovers, which you got to think will regress to a positive mean at some point, but it hasn't happened yet in the Satterfield era.
Be nice if they force like 3 or 4 in this TCU game. Let's just feel really comfortable about the fact that the Bearcats can get some extra possessions. That'd be all right for me. But we'll give you our predictions on exactly how Saturday will go coming up next. The next time you go to a live event, you need to use Game Time to get there because Game Time makes the ticket buying process so easy. Whether it's showing you the all-in pricing upfront before you ever add the ticket to your cart, or if you're going somewhere new that you've never been before, you can see your view from your seat. That way you're not stuck in a bad spot, don't have a weird angle. Game Time want to make sure that you have a great time when you go to your event, whether it's a game, whether it's a concert, whether it's a comedy event, all that stuff is on over at Game Time. In fact, I'm going to a Cyclones game this week, and I got my tickets through Game Time. Makes it so simple to go see your team wherever they're at. If you want to follow the Bearcats down to the Fort Worth area and go see them play TCU, or if you want to follow them to the bowl game, Game Time is going to have you covered for all of that. Download Game Time today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. When you set up your account, you'll save $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thanks for joining us here on this Locked On Bearcats podcast as we get you set for the TCU game coming up on Saturday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Nice little mid-afternoon game after a couple of, big time like swings where you go noon and then you go 8, and yeah, it's nice. 3:30 sounds nice. I'm a little leery though because 3.5 points on the spread, as I mentioned a few minutes ago over on FanDuel, is where the Bearcats are. The 3.5 point underdogs right now. And I feel like the over is another nice, sexy pick when you're looking at the total. But I don't know, man. Like, I kind of want to pick them to win. I kind of do, but I don't think I will. I think that I will pick TCU to just put a nail in this coffin. And I hate saying that. I really do. But 30-27 is what I've got. I think that's the over. Maybe 30-28. Maybe I do have them covering. I don't know.
Yeah, you'd be half point over right there at 56.5. I'm right there, right around your projection. I got TCU scoring one less field goal, 28-27 Bearcats. I don't think they attempt a field goal in this game. I think they just leave it all on the line. They let it rip, as Brendan Sorsby says. I mean, why not? Why not just go for all the fourth downs? Why not be in fourth down go territory? Basically, every time you got the football past your own 40, that's what I would be doing. I would be running that football, like I said at will, trying to get into manageable third and short, manageable fourth and short scenarios, be willing to run Brendan Sorsby in those scenarios. And I think they get the job done with 4 touchdowns and a couple less kind of executing, a little bit less execution from TCU in the red zone. They have to kick a few more field goals, and that ultimately ends up being the difference here. So give me the Bearcats 28-27. I think they get it done. We'll see though. It's you never know with this team in November. Just one total win under Scott Satterfield, and I believe it was against Houston in the first season. So that doesn't really say a whole lot from that team a couple years ago.
Yeah, and you mentioned like water finance level when it comes to the turnovers. That's another thing where I'm like, man, they got to fall into one of these wins here in November, right? Like it's getting to this point, and Sonny Dykes seems like the perfect coach to do it against. Like, geez, just get a dub.
And
right?
and one thing to note that we didn't talk about so far during the show is no Kevorian Barnes for the TCU Horned Frogs. Their leading rusher, 400 plus yards this season, over 90 carries, over 4 yards per attempt, and they might not have Bud Clark, who has been a interception maven, 4 picks so far this season, and their best overall safety in the back end. So another reason why the Bearcats could be able to target deep and maybe get a couple more of those explosive plays that put them in more red zone scenarios than the TCU Horned Frogs are able to access.
Yeah, they don't have an LJ Martin type, right? Because I'm still having nightmares about that dude running everyone over.
Big old human. He was
Oh
he was one of the biggest running backs I've ever seen in college football in person when I was
bigger than Bear Bachmeier. Like Bear Bachmeier was short compared.
I mean, he was bigger than UC linebackers for sure, maybe bigger than some of their smaller defensive ends and stuff like that. He was an absolute force. They need to try to emulate what BYU did to them this weekend against TCU.
Easily an NFL running back. I mean, he carried it. And I said before the game, I didn't think that UC's defense would really expose Bear Bachmeier. I low-key think Bear Bachmeier sort of exposed himself. He didn't look like a good thrower.
No, and I think he got banged up a little bit too. They only threw 7 passes in the second half. I mean, they were like, oh, you're just going to leave the middle of the field open and not run blitz at all and not do anything to change your run defense mentality? Oh, okay, cool. We'll just literally run it down your throat the entire second half in your building in one of the most raucous environments I've ever seen, but it wasn't the most raucous because UC never let it get to that decibel level.
It was an absolute dominant performance by him, and I don't think that TCU's got that guy. So I feel good about saying that part. But yeah, the defense is going to have to come up with some stops, and that's where, like, I feel like if they do get those turnovers, they could easily cover, they could easily win. It's just that hasn't been their thing at home, and to expect it to happen on the road for me, that's where I'm a little bit negative on this. And I don't know, maybe I'm just beaten down at this point by this 3-game losing. Maybe I'm letting it weigh on me too much. I don't know. But it feels like Brendan Sorsby has done some nice things, but because he has made mistakes at times, nobody else has been making up for it. And so when he can't be perfect, then the rest of the team just doesn't make up for his lack of perfection. And I feel like that's almost too much pressure to put on a guy.
It is. And I think he's getting, honestly, a little bit undue heat over the last month during this losing streak, because he's still played pretty much to the standard he's been at all season. He's 12th nationally in PFF grade, 11th nationally in ESPN QBR. Did have the grade drop a little bit on Saturday with like a 62.7 overall, but I mean, he didn't put him in major harm's way outside of the weird arm punt, which they lost like 20 yards of field position with, but I think they ended up giving up a score on that ensuing drive anyways, or at least a red zone trip. So that didn't really matter a whole lot in the result of the game. And I just feel like they're going to get it done. I just do. I've had a decent sense for this team so far all season long. I believe I'm 9-2 now picking the game so far this season. So would love to get to 10-2, but we'll see. We shall see.
I hope you're right. You're making me feel better about this game. And you can also follow all of Russ's coverage about this game as we get ready for it, the preview and everything like that, all over on Cincinnati Bearcats on SI. And he's got you covered there as well. Russ, I appreciate you for joining me here today. I'm hoping that we can end the season on a high note, go into the bowl, with a win, and then get a win in the bowl. And then, hey, we're talking about a pretty good season at that point.
Right. And think about what they've done in the portal with no success in the postseason. Right. If you get some postseason success, that's only going to help you win a couple battles here or there that you can't win monetarily with the bag, but you can win in the win column by showing how much progress you've made year over year.
And you're going to have to do that with this defense because they're losing a lot of players, and they're going to have to rebuild it somehow. The portal is going to be another big key factor in all of that. But thank you so much for checking out today's Locked On Bearcats. Hopefully Russ is right and I'm wrong, and the Bearcats get that dub on Saturday. You can make sure and follow everything that's going on with the Bearcats over on SI, and you'll be right here with Locked On Bearcats. Got a crossover coming up for you on Friday. We're going to talk with Darian Gray from Locked On TCU and break down this matchup from his perspective as well. So make sure you join us for that. But until then, you know that we will be Locked On Bearcats every single